Hi, everybody. It's Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee on the Joe and Joe Weather Show at an unusual time, but 12:30 Eastern Time on a Monday. And of course, we've got this major storm that is underway. Thought I was going to have to solo it, Joe, but you managed to avoid not losing power, so that's a good thing.
Oh, knock on wood. The lights have been flickering for quite well the last couple of hours here, and it's interesting, Joe, how the winds, at least up here at the home base in Putnam Valley, have been coming in waves, like almost it seems like hardly anything. Then all of a sudden, this big, tremendous gust comes along, and that's when we start seeing the flickering. And you had asked me if I were up to doing this at 12:30, and I said, well, I'm not up to doing it if I'm going to lose power, but my wonderful wife said, "Go ahead, take a shot,
Take a
go for
chance. Go on. Right.
it."
Go
And so
go
here
in the
I am.
go in the bathtub and play the radio. All right, let's. There were a few things going on. Your wind experience is the same by me. In fact, right now I'm in one of those lull periods. Now I'm on the North Shore, so a lot of times the wind sometimes can be strange here when it's from the south. You could now it's picking up again. You could be uh, you can look at the trees. The tops of the trees will be blowing like it's 50 miles an hour, but down right near the ground, it doesn't always mix down as efficiently. And on a day like today, I'm seeing examples of that where the tops of the winds are just going, the tops of the trees are, looks like they're getting gusts of 50 or more. And then, yeah, right on the ground, maybe it's only at about, 15 or 20. But of course, it picks up on the ground as well. Um, there's a tornado watch up. I want to get to front and center here, so I'll bring that up first as soon as I figure out what I did with it. Here we go. Um,
It's hard to lose a tornado watch, Joe.
I know it's
I was watching Governor Cuomo's uh, daily news conference, and it was on ABC 7, and then they put at the bottom of the screen uh, breaking news: tornado watch posted for central and southern New Jersey. And so mentally, I'm saying to myself, okay, central. Thinking about like anywhere from Tom's River on south. But then I got my wife's iPad out, took a look on the Storm Prediction Center. My goodness, almost the
the
entire
whole
state is
st-
covered.
except for three or four northeastern counties, the whole state of New Jersey's in. Much of eastern and central Pennsylvania, except the northern tier of counties there, and this goes down to Delaware, to Maryland, and Virginia. We also should point out that I actually, when I looked a few minutes ago, and there were some working tornado warnings that have already popped up in this zone. One of the things I want to just stress is that for the folks that are in the southeastern part of the U.S., except for that band that extends back to about near Jacksonville in Florida, all the severe thunderstorms that went through this morning are now offshore and done with. What you're seeing here are the lightning strikes. You're getting all the lightning strikes out off the coastal waters. So good news for those areas. Your severe weather issues are done with. But looking up a little bit closer, you're seeing lightning strikes that are showing up in Maryland around Hagerstown down to Winchester, and back up northwest to Cumberland in Maryland. You can see the distance here from Baltimore and Washington. A few isolated strikes that we're looking at there, and we have 5 severe thunderstorm warnings that are up, with some of them up in west central Pennsylvania, west of State College and Altoona, and then 4 other severe thunderstorm warnings. And there's one tornado warning, Joe, that's just south and west of Washington, D.C. It's located 9 miles northwest of Stafford, moving east at 40 miles an hour. This is a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. So they put in they did put up a tornado warning there. By the way, and also it's 12:34 Eastern time. If you're watching this on a replay, please remember that the radars are dated, so you want to make sure you have your updated weather information. Please go to the National Weather Service forecast pages at weather.gov and go to your local forecast office for all the latest. And it looks like it's a solid squall line that's developing from Allentown down to York, down to just north and west of Baltimore to about Arlington, moving to the east.
That's the one that I think is being watched carefully by the Storm Prediction Center. And also, there's kind of a corridor of not much happening between that squall line and another batch of showery weather over in western and west central Pennsylvania. And in fact, if you look at the GOES 16 satellite imagery, there's
Which
some good
I'll put
breaks.
up right now.
There's some good breaks in the clouds developing in that corridor. And if the sun, if we have a nice, I'm not going to say nice, but if you have an area of clearing there in the next couple hours and allow for a goodly amount of sun to develop and a nice warm up in temperatures out there, we could see that area suddenly blow up with convective activity, which
Sure.
could lead to severe weather.
You can see it on the loop, Joe. It's like a little finger of dry air that's like a little dry slot that's coming up, as you point out, moving up into Pennsylvania. And then, of course, you've got the upper trough that is swinging eastward. I had I'm going to bring the water vapor loop up because that was actually pretty impressive looking to me in terms of how the upper trough. Just look at the bulge down in the water vapor imagery back from Michigan down to Indiana and Kentucky. It's like this giant finger is poked down and it's pushing everything to the east. That is one powerhouse shortwave that is swinging through. And the other thing I noticed, by the way, is I was looking at the surface maps last night after we were done with our live stream. I noticed that when the front comes through this afternoon, the isobars have that really, really sharp V shape to them.
Right, right.
And that's usually a pretty good indicator that that frontal passage is going to be a little bit on the rough side.
Yeah, the people who might think that as we move toward the end of the afternoon, that the winds will die off. But as soon as that, as you mentioned, that line, that kinked zone that indicates where the actual front is, that's going to be like, well, if you're on an airplane, for example, and you hear the pilot say, "Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelts. We're about to hit a bit of turbulence." That's going to be the turbulence as it moves on through in terms of gusty and shifting winds from southerly or southeasterly right into the west later today.
Jason Schaefer was asking, is the band of storms we're seeing, part of the reason we have the tornado watch, and that SPC is blaming part of this on the unexpected sunshine. Well, certainly the daytime heating is coming into play. I got the surface map up. Let me find it and I'll bring it up on the screen. Um, uh, I've got everything. I normally have everything where I want it to be. But unfortunately, moving maps around all day today. So there we go. I picked correctly. So I'm looking, Joe, on the surface map. Well, a couple of things with the surface plots with the observations. Gusts to 60 miles an hour at Beach Haven, North Beach Haven on the Jersey Shore, 62 miles an hour at Atlantic City International Airport, and we're also seeing some gusts on Long Island. I just had a gust at 40, now down to 31. Farmingdale is gusting to 43. On In southern Connecticut, just south of Bridgeport, actually at Sikorsky Memorial Airport in Bridgeport, gusting there to 45. Uh, there's a lot of variability, as you said, with the wind gusts. I'm looking in the Hudson Valley. Poughkeepsie's only gusting to 25, for example. And you go
Right.
further north at the Catskill Center, their wind is only gusting to 19. Now that there might be some terrain that's impacting there, but then you go down and there's pockets where you go down inland and you're seeing some gusts up into the 30s and 40s. And then of course you talk about the daytime heating. Its temperatures are reaching up above 70 now in northern Maryland, and in southeastern and south central Pennsylvania, we're starting to see readings pop up into the mid and upper 60s. So that heating is gonna play a role in how strong these thunderstorms are this afternoon.
Yeah, here, as I said, it's been coming in waves. Sometimes I'm looking out the window and I say, hey, it's not so bad. And then all of a sudden, you see the tops of those trees waving back and forth. I actually have a Davis weather station on a 25-foot mast in my backyard. It's never, the one thing I'm not pleased with that weather station. It's never really given me, I think, accurate wind readings. But um, to get what a semblance, I think, of what is actually going on. I actually double what's on the message board here. So I've seen winds, after doing that correction, gusting close to 40 whenever we get those big surges. So it has not been, thankfully, it's not been all that strong as compared to other places down to the south and along the shore where there's no friction, allowing those winds to really rev up. But still, it's a pretty windy day out there, no question about it. And we've had bouts of heavy rainfall. About 15 minutes ago, my rain gauge said 1.04 inches, and obviously there's going to be more to come.
Paul, I'm sorry, I just had it here on the board. Where Paul, I hope I pronounce this right, Paul. Govea said Atlantic City, New Jersey, gusted to 72 miles an hour. So that might have been just before, but my obs update fairly quickly, so I must have just missed that. But a gust to 72 miles an hour at Atlantic City International Airport. 68 reported at the Tappan Zee Bridge, according to David Schwartz. And I saw, David, you gave a tornado count earlier. I'm trying to find it. 60 tornadoes in the last 48 hours. And yeah, the active tornado warning, that we pointed out down in parts of Maryland. I've got the latest radar here. I think I'll take a tight view. We'll go to the one. Oh, come on with the flash player. I'm going to have to do this a different way. Okay, hang on one
Christian,
second.
Christianpedia says what's saving a lot of damage, she thinks, is the fact that there are no leaves on the trees.
I
I'm
think
not
that's a good, that's, well, that's not necessarily true as you go further south. Because when I drove down south over a month ago, the trees were already in budding mode
right.
down that way. I'm going to see if I can pull up, let's go OKX. I'm going to bring up no, wrong radar, hold on. OKX. Okay. So I got the radar out of Upton. So you can see that there's a hole of dry air with some showers. Joe, you with us? All right, hang on, folks. I took an internet hit here, so understandably so. Let me see if I can get Mr. Rayo back. Um, okay, let's try getting him back here. What a day.
Yes.
I took one of those lovely little internet hits, which I think
Yeah.
we're going to see a few more of. I got the Dover radar up, and just looking at one shrinking tornado warning, or two shrinking tornado warnings. It's a little off my eye. Yeah, there are two. One that's just west of Baltimore. There's between Westminster and Baltimore and Maryland. There's a nasty looking cell there that's bubbled up, and that line that runs up toward Lancaster and on up toward Allentown. It's moving. It's not really making a lot of eastward progress yet. It's trying, but it's not quite. It's not quite getting there. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, the hang on, I'm just that internet hit kind of threw me off just a little bit. Yep, should be back on, folks. Everything will be. We're subject to these internet hits that are going to occur. So looks we're going to play through this afternoon. I'm in one of those wind lull periods right now, Joe. I just had some big gusts, and now the trees have kind of looked like they're calmed down for a little bit. But that's, as you said, that's temporary.
Right.
All right. So what should we? Let's roll on. Warnings. You still have a lot of high wind. Lots of high wind warnings and wind advisories from Maine all the way down to South Carolina and all the way west back to Chicago. Of course, we have the standing tornado watch that is in effect. And I'm going to let's see. Let's go to what is Storm Prediction Center doing here? Come on. This is one of those days where we do have an updated. They just updated it where they accounted for the fact that most of the severe weather is over with in the southeast, except for a small little strip in northern Florida. But we've got a slight risk of severe weather. All of New Jersey, most of Pennsylvania, certainly eastern and central Pennsylvania, Maryland, Northeast Virginia, and into Delaware. The eastern edge of that touching New York City. Marginal risk now expanded eastward to cover the western half of Connecticut, virtually all of Long Island, western Massachusetts, and upstate New York up to just north of I-90 into the Adirondacks.
Right. That when you take a look at the convective outlook and you go to tornado, every place that's in that tornado watch area has a 5% chance, and just outside of the watch area, there's a 2% chance. That includes New York City and for central and western sections of the lower Hudson Valley.
Right, and you know, 5% for this time of year is not that's not exactly a low number.
Oh no,
Not
and
at all.
correct. And in fact, what really was frightening yesterday was that area down in the southeast parts of the Tennessee and Mississippi River Valley that had a 15% probability of tornado. And I don't remember, Joe, ever seeing anything higher than 10. So 15% was like wow, they must really, believe that there was going to be some action. And sadly, I saw that a nursing home facility in Chattanooga, Tennessee, really got clobbered, and sadly, 19 souls lost their lives from tornado activity in that area yesterday.
Yeah, I haven't seen the total count is across the South. Yeah, very sad indeed with severe weather. Definitely, this is one of those severe snow is one thing. Uh, there's a randomness with regards to the wind, except if it's a tropical storm. But you know what? When you forecast for severe weather and it doesn't happen, that's a good thing, and that's not to have and it's nothing to complain about that you didn't get the thunderstorms you thought you were going to get, because they can be, as we know, so destructive and happen so quickly. The wind probability, by the way, is at 15% for damaging winds of 50 knots or higher, and a 5% probability of hail. So you know what? Let's jump. I'm going to just put up the surface map just to show everybody. The low center is up in northern Michigan, sitting pretty much right over Sault Ste. Marie. You have this elongated north-south low, and the warm front, which at least at 12Z. Let me see if the 15Z map is in. But at 8 a.m. this morning, we don't have the 15Z map yet, but at 8 a.m., the warm front was in northern Virginia and just moving into southern New Jersey. And I imagine, looking at the observations now, that warm front's probably pushed up much further north than that. So you're seeing that warm sector setting up with respect to the severe weather. Now, as far as the rest of the day is concerned, let's do the what do you want, the GFS or the NAM?
GFS, we're even on we're on daylight saving time. That's pretty well out completely now, so we could look at that.
Okay, let me bring it up here, and
I
so
will say, in regard to the NAM, I will say that over the last couple of days, for Wednesday, they were bringing in moisture and had it showing up or depicting it as snow, and now it's still bringing the moisture up, and now they're depicting it more as rain than snow. So
makes sense. Give snow lovers one last uh, uh, put it on the table and then take it away.
well,
Uh,
we're waiting for the May blizzard. That's what we're waiting
right,
for.
correct. So here's your cold front coming through. This is at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And Joe, once again, that the V shape of those isobars, very, very obvious as this weather front approaches the East Coast. And the GFS does have on its radar presentation what would appear to be some, rather blotchy areas of showers and storms. I don't know if it's going to look like that. It probably will look more like we're seeing on the radar now with those lines forming. But nonetheless, keeping in the theme of some severe weather risks running through this afternoon. The wind is going to drop off very quickly tonight. We're going to go from gust, being still pretty windy going into this evening. But, by midnight or 1 o'clock, those gusts are going to be way down. And by tomorrow morning, the winds are going to be rather settled compared to today.
And that'll be a nice thing because it's always well, it's scary for me because you always worry about losing power. Although I will say one thing about where I live here in Putnam Valley, they spent the last 4 or 5 months in various parts of our community, you saw the tree guys trimming and taking down limbs and dead trees and they really did a great job. I think because of that, and again, knock on wood, I haven't lost any power yet. But in a year or two ago, with all those tree limbs hanging off and branches and whatever else, I probably would have lost power by now. So they did a good job in that regard. But yeah, that'll be good. Breathe a sigh of relief later tonight after those winds finally die off considerably from where we're seeing right now.
Timothy Veltman says up here where he is north of Albany, he's now up to 60 there, so he's getting some of that warm air. Mike Talley, is this storm a pattern changer? Not really. It's a result of the pattern that we went into with the blocking weakening pretty rapidly, and I don't really see it changing what's going to be happening down the road. I think it's going to still be a rather active pattern with weather systems moving along. I don't know if this particular storm was very, very strong. I mean, we're not going to probably see another very strong system for the rest of this week and going into this weekend. But it's not really changing the pattern because we are going to be colder than normal for the next week to 10 days at least. And John, on GFS, as you said, on the NAM getting more of a rainy look. I mean, here's the same thing. It's got a little blotch of some blue snow Tuesday night as this little upper system, this little shortwave moves into West Virginia and Western Virginia. The cold front that's coming through this afternoon stalling out, so you're getting a low that's going to develop on that front. But it's just it's a cold rain that you see on the northern fringe of this. This needed to happen a month ago. This needed to happen 6 weeks ago or in February. We'd be talking probably a different, having a totally different conversation, but not on April 14th and April 15th.
No, it's not going to work. Well, I'll I'll take that back. It can work sometimes. At the moment, it doesn't seem like it's going to work, but a lot of surprises so far this month of April, and we'll see if anything else of interest is coming our way before the month comes to an end.
Yeah, it looks like another weather system coming through on Friday. Front with a little wave on it. Then the way it looks, the weekend may not be too shabby. Uh, Something on the long range coming off from the Gulf states, but you know what? That's early. That's sometime next week.
We can
We'll
talk about that. We can talk about that at on our regular. This is like the old game shows, like To Tell the Truth. Well, you're watching the daytime version of Joe and
Right,
Joe. You stay with us later tonight for the nighttime Joe and Joe at 7 o'clock.
right, and we won't have it hosted by Dennis James instead of Bob Barker.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, so I got us both full screen, so we're just going to kind of, like you said, we'll wrap it up at this point, just to give everybody an update of what's going on this afternoon. Once again, reminding you if you're watching this on a replay, this aired live between 12:30 p.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern time, so. The radars are dated, the satellites are dated, the observations are dated. Be sure to go to your local National Weather Service forecast office, and you can website page to get the latest weather information on any severe weather that's happening. And you can do that by going to weather.gov, G-O-V.
And dare I say, I'm sure, Mr. Chiaffi, that if there's any major developments in terms of severe thunderstorms or even hook echoes and tornado sightings, that you and I will quickly come back on, not together necessarily, but for our own separate services to alert our faithful viewers of what is transpiring, and it could very well be that way in the next 2 or 3 hours.
You got that right. So have a good afternoon, everybody. Stay safe. Joe, we'll maybe see you tonight, probably around 7 o'clock.
If I don't lose power, fingers crossed.
Okay, see you later.